Greetings. Wake up, South Africa. You are listening to The Coffee Conversation. My name is Dean Heystek, and I'm just a guy who gives a damn.
This is Aphiwe. What do you say, Dean?
Well, the other side of the story, but yeah. We are
Okay.
in the... we are... You're going to have to get that one.
The other side of the story.
Ta-da. All right, so we're trying to not dismantle terms, but dismantle accusations. White privilege we've hopefully taken from purely an accusation to something that we can even argue about and acknowledge the existence of. We've got a really fun subject today, Black Entitlement.
Maybe not to even dismantle, but deal with.
Yeah, fair enough. Black Entitlement.
Deal with it. I'm entitled to you. Must say sorry for oppressing me. I'm entitled at least to that.
You are entitled to that and probably a little bit more, but there's an accusation that is used to shut down the voice of black people, which needs to be taken out of the place of accusation to the place of realization so we can hit with truth. So this is the accusation. Black people are lazy. Black people don't want to accept responsibility. Black people want a handout. They don't want to work hard for stuff. They want to be given stuff. They feel justified in stealing because, well, stuff was stolen from them and they're entitled to it, and possibly even to the place of murdering, that because there are so many poor black people and they've been oppressed for so long, they are entitled to take what they want. That's the accusation.
Who's accusing them?
Mostly white people, us privileged morons.
You don't be hard on yourself.
No, it's fair, because in industry and stuff, this is kind of the possibly aspects of the experience, but when the term is used, it's to go, I just don't want to deal with these guys anymore. That's the accusation, that's the reality and the existence as a blanket statement of black people in general.
Now, maybe this is not relevant, but I want to ask, do you believe that? Do you believe that blacks are entitled? You now personally?
In the way that I've described it, certainly not. But I do believe that there is an aspect of entitlement that exists amongst the black people, certainly. And there's very good reasons for it, but I do believe it exists. But not in the way that I described it to you exactly. Hold on, yes and no. There are some, certainly, that's how their lives manifest.
Black entitlement.
Don't catch me with a hard question like that. Do you believe it? I've just thrown out like the most horrible statement in history said against black people in honesty, and you say, well, do you believe it? And my answer has to be there's aspects of it. Yes, absolutely, I believe it.
Well, you believe that blacks are entitled. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing. You see, truth is truth. Truth is truth. Whoever says it. It doesn't matter. If there is cause for anybody to think that black people are entitled, I think they are okay to, they are entitled themselves to make that observation. So there is a measure of entitlement that should be afforded to anyone, really. But I want to respond. As a black man who has lived his entire life being black, I was not white before. I was always black.
Shock horror.
So there is an element, even now in our society, and that is really the irresponsibility of black people. It's like somebody is coming to our rescue, or it's like somebody must come to our rescue. It's like there's always, I remember growing up in the Eastern Cape, we were playing soccer, and I was a goalkeeper, a good one. So...
You learned that from white people.
So we're always waiting for Jomo. There was this guy called Jomo Sono, and he was the coach of Jomo Cosmos at that time. Okay, I played soccer. And as we were playing soccer back at home, we're always waiting for Jomo Sono to come and select a player that he would put on his team. And so that was, again, I attribute that to the waiting. We're not going to get something. We're not go-getters. That is not intertwined into who we are. And I'm saying that at the risk of sounding like I'm misrepresenting some blacks here. But following that thought process of waiting, you see this in the townships. That is why it's so easy to go to SASSA. That is why it's so easy to go to SASSA and line up and wait for, or rather apply for some sort of a grant. I know people back at home, just because his finger was hurt, sometimes he wants to be known as a disabled person. He can do so much. I know your finger is messed up in a way, but
I've just made a whole lot of Xhosa people proud.
That finger for a Xhosa person, they would go and apply for a SASSA grant because the government must take care of me because my finger is hurt. And then he can do other things, but he feels he's entitled to that. So a little bit of something that can be a proof that somebody should look after me. That is a reality. That is a reality. And so it also plays out in crime. It also plays out in crime. There was a time when I thought there was no other profession that I could engage in. There was a time when I thought, I am who I am what I am, I'll always be a criminal. My call in life is to hurt people. Why? Because I'm not educated, because I do have now a criminal record, so nobody wants to hire me now. Therefore, it should be understood that this is my calling now.
It's natural. It's of course I'm
you
going to be
better
a criminal.
understand
That's
it. So I didn't have a moral compass, if you will, a moral, a regulator that would say, no, that's wrong, don't do that. I was entitled to anyone. You must understand my situation. You must understand my situation and possibly even help me. The idea that somebody must help me. That is why we don't understand why you would want to arrest us when we steal a car. Why would you do that? I mean, you know how poor we are. You know how my family... That you see this again plays out now even in big stage. Politicians, because of what happened in the past, they are entitled to being as corrupt as they can because there is a family somewhere that's waiting for them now to support them. Because finally they've produced somebody who can go into parliament. So this tribalistic thinking, there is a whole tribe that is entitled to a man like Jacob Zuma taking care of them. Sorry, I mentioned the name, but that is what is a reality in the black culture. There is entitlement.
I want to ask you a question, if I may, and maybe you don't know the answer. I heard a story a while back. I can't remember who it was from, that there's a mindset in the village, let's say, and I don't know if it was an Eastern Cape village or a KwaZulu village or any other village in the country, that when you steal outside the village, it's fine. And even if you steal outside the village, bring it home, it's actually something which is promoted. Now, I don't know if you've experienced anything in that mindset, and if you have, is that a cultural thing, or is that something that's been encultured because of the oppression, or an element of both?
I think it's an element of both, because I can remember, I know exactly that there are many livestock thieves in the Eastern Cape. Even in my village, there are many livestock thieves who steal outside of their village. And a man can be known as a thief. A man can be known as a thief, but he's not hazardous. He's not labeled as hazardous.
Because he doesn't steal from you.
He's not a hazardous man, but we know his kraal is full of stolen livestock. He even becomes a hero if he steals from white people. If he goes to farms and steals from white people, he's a hero of black people because he opens their yards and take their livestock and all that. That is a reality. And even in the township, there was an incident. I'm standing outside. It's cold in the morning, but there is a sunlight. So I'm just standing there, and there are guys in the township sitting also there on the sun. And so comes this guy pushing a trolley, asking for 5 rand. And they ask him, "Where have you been, man?" And he says, "I just came out of prison, man." "What for?" "I broke into somebody's house." And they are disappointed. Why would you do that? And he says, nah, man, it was a white man's house. They say, "Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine, you can do that." I think I would like to think that, again, that's an element of entitlement. So I'm not going to deny it, Dean, because I'll deny it today and then it will happen tomorrow. And then what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So a group of black people.
There's an idea that black people are lazy. But I look at this and I go, I don't see black people as lazy in every environment at all. The kids get up 4 o'clock in the morning to walk miles to get to school and then walk all the way back. And they put in a lot of effort. You just to get to work have to get up earlier. The lady who works with us, the gardener who works with us, the gentleman who works with us, he's got to get up so much earlier and make his way to the taxi area and sometimes or walk all the way into town. There's not an element of laziness there at all. Walking miles just to go and fetch water in the more rural areas. There's no laziness there. Yet it seems to manifest in the workplace where all of a sudden being in a workplace, it's like, the big thing is, they just watch the clock. So they'll get there 10 past 8. They're supposed to be there at 8. This is the accusation, and it does happen. Get there at 10 past 8 and tea is at 9:30. There's no ways they're going to be late for tea. And it might be tea from 9:30 till 10:15, but they'll come in at 13 minutes or 12 minutes to 10 instead of 9:45, and that's then perceived as laziness. There's a accusation that is validated there by, all right, they're not lazy, but when it comes to work, they don't want to contribute.
When it comes to black laziness, I would have to disagree with that one. A black man cannot afford to be lazy. A black man cannot afford to be lazy. Going to work and clocking in, well, the African time issue is a separate it's a separate issue because time is measured differently in our culture, and now we are soaked into the European waters of having to look at the watch while we normally look at the sun. So there's but laziness, then, goodness, we walk miles to school.
Yeah.
Like you just pointed it out. We tilled our land. There's people tilling the land in the village now with no boss. Those are their own initiatives that I must wake up, I must get the cows together, put the yokes on those necks, and then I must go and work. Otherwise, I'm not going to eat because there is no other source of income or food for that matter. There's no other provider except that field being taken care of. So black people in general cannot afford to be lazy.
Why do you think they disengage from work?
Disengaging from work? I mean, coming to work, it's black people also believe that you never finish work. You should never aim to finish work. Because as soon as I finish work, I'm running out of a job. So when they come to work, they're not going to be as dedicated and as, engaged to finish the job that they're doing because they don't know where else they are going after they finish this. And they know they need to eat for the entire year. So at least if they can get 6 months of this job, doing this job, then they will be paid for 6 months. So, and then again, because they are not included, you don't expect black people when they come to the workplace. You don't have the expectation that they have anything to contribute other than their strength. So you have not included them in the thought processes of what must be done, what's coming, what's the incentives, what's the bonus if we finish this on time, and what bonus would I give you if you finish this on time. And so you are not expecting them to bring their brains and their convictions. You're expecting them to bring their energy. So partly I would have white people to blame for that behavior in the workplace.
I can see that. I can give you an example. So I'm walking past this guy who's working the other day, a while back, and in the one sentence he was going, listen, you're here to work, not to think. And in the next sentence he's shouting at the guy saying, why aren't you accepting responsibility? What's wrong with you? And those two ideas are incoherent.
Yeah.
And that certainly perpetuated a lot of the lack of engagement in work, I think. There's many reasons for all these things.
A black man comes to work as a donkey.
Yeah.
He comes to work as the machine.
I think that's true for most of the environment because most of the black labor is labor force. The guys in higher society managed to get through. There's maybe a different environment. I'm not fully aware of it, but certainly for the last, in all societies, the guys at the lower end, they're the labor force. They're the ones who do all the hard and the graft work and stuff.
In South Africa, it happened to be blacks.
And it happened to be blacks.
And coloureds.
Yeah, when I went to England, it was fascinating because I go to England coming from South Africa, and the guys who sweep the streets are white. The guys who take the garbage out are white. All the cashiers are white. Because they don't have a large black labor force, but they've still got this lower class. The whole class structure hierarchies, that's natural to happen in terms of equality and inequality, and they foster in some ways in the Western culture a deliberate mechanism to keep certain parts even of their own population down in order to serve those who are at the top. And that's built into our system. And we applied that system here in South Africa. We, liberal use of the word we. I'd like to say that I didn't. But that system is applied here in South Africa, and it affects predominantly the black people. And it disenfranchises anyone who can come through. We were speaking to Bruce the other day, and he said something quite important, which I really enjoyed. He said that obviously in society, not everybody makes it up. Not everybody makes it up. But what apartheid did was that the white people who could make it up higher had a vent to get higher. They had somewhere to go. And all the other white people who didn't have very far to go were quite happy at the bottom, knowing that there was a vent. That if they did get a better education and they were a genius in a certain area and they did come up with a brilliant idea, at least there was a place for them to express themselves. But in apartheid, even those talented, gifted blacks never had anywhere to go. And it oppressed all of them, and that mindset's there. So part of the entitlement is that now, and the entitlement, yes, you might be entitled, but the entitlement mentality is that, well, I don't have to work hard for it, I've just got to get it. And it justifies the lying and the cheating and the stealing and the murder and whatever it might be, and that's manifest in society.
At the risk of pointing fingers, some of the black entitlement is perpetuated by the government.
The current government.
The current government. Some of the black entitlement is perpetuated by the current government. The anger and the criminality and the violence of blacks was perpetuated by the apartheid government. Because they had to go to war. They had to find ways to hurt back who's hurting them. But the entitlement is now perpetuated by the current government because of the promises that everybody knows that they're empty. That we will give you something for free. We will give you land. You will take something. We will give you. And that the RDP issue, the entire system, has made a black man lazy and a social welfare junkie. That is what a black man has become. And so he goes to the workplace, much of them, with that mentality that somebody must give me something even here. Well, for instance, benefits at work. Benefits, you must get a job. Very few black people that I know aspire to be entrepreneurs. The attitude of pioneering has been suffocated out of them. Very few blacks think of themselves as pioneers. And that is the revolution that we need. And I think that's part of why Africans in general are not great missionaries to any other country. Africa never colonized anybody. Have you ever thought about that?
Only each other. Shaka Zulu didn't become one of the greatest generals in history by being nice to the tribe.
I'm talking about not invading a country and taking over. Africans, they've always, it's rather an implosion.
There's a reality that somebody pointed out, and to what extent I don't know, but the basic fundamental idea of it is true, is that Africans look backwards. So you consider the ancestors, you consider the elderly, you consider what happened in the past, and those things have enormous relevance. And there's a beautiful part to that, but there is an inhibiting of not, like you're saying, not pioneering. The way that Africans, like Europeans, used to pioneer was to raid. They would expand their territories by raiding others, and there's a whole lot of things that trigger that. But the pioneering spirit is a forward-looking thing, and African culture looks backwards a lot, and European culture only looks forward. And then we neglect what's happened in the past, and there's weaknesses in both. So you need to look back. There's value there which we can learn from the African culture. Even your language reflects aspects of that. When you meet me, you say, "Who are you?" I say, "How are you?" Or what do you do? Where you say, "Who are you?" It's important to the black culture you're part of that family in that area. And you describe
we give you a long
story
of where I come from. I'll tell you my mother, my grandmother,
and that's beautiful. But there's the element of looking forward that not looking forward enough is holding back, where us looking only forward is destroying things. We only look forward. So there's an element of both that we could actually learn from each other if we can just get past these damn issues. I went to England again, bunch of flip. You go into the bank, anywhere, and you go, "Hi, how are you?" And they look at you like you're an absolute moron. Like,
How
why
are
the
you?
hell do you, what do you want to know?
Don't you know
How,
I'm white?
Yeah, no, I'm white. Speaking to a white person, it's like, hi, how are you? Because we're generally quite friendly in South Africa compared. They don't know how to even respond to it. You know, you guys, I say, who are you? And we went to that meeting. We sat there for 2 hours. He introduced himself. We never got through the meeting. So there's value, and that's an aspect of the pioneering that doesn't fully manifest in what you're describing. And then obviously there's a tension between those two words. I have no idea where I was going with this. Help me out. I've just lost the plot.
The pioneering spirit is lacking. That's for sure. The pioneering spirit is lacking, and because of that, something has to be existent, and that is sitting and just waiting. And then we blame everybody for our ills. We've only got a couple of minutes, and I want to introduce an idea here. You know, in the I'm coming out the closet, if you like, as a Christian here. In the 1970s, 80s, and 90s in South Africa, there was a very strong spiritual revival. There was a massive, massive move of God. I believe very strongly, and it was evident in every single community. Although there were walls of apartheid separating us, it didn't stop the revival. In every aspect, on each side of those walls, there was a revival where I believe the call from God was come into the storehouse. There was massive congregations in every community, lots of people coming in. And there was prayer. There was prayer for change. There was prayer for peace and freedom for all. That's what the prayer was. And in 1994, with a whole lot of things happening into that changed the heart of man. It softened the hearts of the black people against the atrocities committed against them, and it softened the hearts of the white people to continue to commit that. And that was fully evident. So what happened in 1994 is we all got what we asked for. We got change, we got peace, and we got freedom for all. And then I noticed that something happened, because although I believe the call of God was to come into the storehouse and pray for those things, once the walls had come down, I believe, although God's word remains the same, his mandate changed, is go out to each other. Take my nasty little thing away there. Go out to each other. And that never happened. We never engaged each other. Whites assumed the blacks were all still heathens. We still need to go save our black brethren in Africa because we're so righteous. And I don't know what the black viewpoint was, but what I did note, and you've described it, is in the white privilege, whites stood back and we did our own thing because we didn't need the government. And in the entitlement mentality, the blacks sat back waiting for the government to save them. I saw a poster where this girl was holding on Facebook this thing that said, we were promised a dream and we were sold a dream and we are here for our refund. The dream wasn't that you were going to be given everything. The dream was for South Africa that a country that was monopolized in opportunity by one group, that was now available to all groups. And both black and white, I think, failed the country. Blacks sat back, waiting to be given stuff, and whites stood back, disengaging from a country that they didn't feel was theirs anymore. And more than the government, I think we as the people are liable. We can only come to that if any meaningful change will ever happen in our country, it will be affected by the people. My name is Dean Heystek, and I'm just a guy who gives a damn. And this is Aphiwe Nqevu, the other side of the story. You got it. The other side of the story.